Okechukwu woke up sweating and shaking on the floor of his small hut. The terrible visions he had just seen kept playing over and over in his mind like a bad nightmare. In the dream, he had to make an unthinkable choice, letting his beloved younger brother Ifeanyi die, in order to please an evil mermaid and stop a curse from destroying their village. The dream felt so real. Okechukwu remembered the clear details, being forced to take part in an ancient ritual where he had to drown Ifeanyi in the muddy depths of the lake. He could still hear his brother's muffled cries as the water filled his lungs. Just thinking about it made Okechukwu feel sick. As he looked around his humble hut, trying to understand what was happening, Okechukwu noticed something strange in the corner. A small pile of shimmering golden flower petals. A chill went down his spine. Those looked exactly like the petals used in the twisted mermaid ritual from his nightmares. Suddenly, Okechukwu sensed another person in the room. He turned his head quickly to see a hauntingly beautiful woman with long black hair and glowing pale skin standing before him. But instead of legs, she had a shimmering fishtail covered in scales. "Do not be afraid," the mermaid said in a soft musical voice that seemed to echo strangely. "The visions you experienced were merely an illusion I created to test your heart." Okechukwu struggled to make sense of what was happening, his mind still reeling from the graphic images of his brother's sacrifice. You put me through all of that horror. Watching Ifeanyi die, it was all just some kind of trick?" he asked, feelings of anger and confusion rising within him. The mermaid nodded solemnly. "Your selfless love for your brother and willingness to endure unimaginable costs to protect your village proved you have a pure spirit. The nightmare is over now." As the mermaid's words sank in, Okechukwu felt a wave of relief. His brother was alive and safe after all. The brutal ritual and curse had just been a powerfully vivid illusion created by this creature's dark magic. But why? Why put him through such psychological torture? "Why did you test me in such a twisted way?" Okechukwu demanded. "What kind of evil game is this? There are ancient and malicious forces stirring that threaten to destroy this land and all you hold dear," the mermaid said, her voice taking on an ominous tone. "I needed to find a mortal man with an unwavering spirit to champion the coming struggle against these unholy terrors." A knot of dread formed in the pit of Okechukwu's stomach. He didn't fully understand what she meant, but could sense great peril in her words. The mermaid continued, "You have proven yourself worthy, brave fisherman. From this day forward you shall be granted supernatural abilities to perceive and combat the dark forces that even now make their presence known in these cursed waters and your once peaceful village." With those haunting words, the room flashed with a blinding light. When Okechukwu's vision cleared, the mermaid had vanished, leaving only the pile of shimmering petals behind. He was alone once more, left only with a swirling mix of lingering fear and unanswered questions. What did the mermaid mean about looming dark forces and unholy terrors? What twisted evil was coming their way? As Okechukwu tried to calm his shaky nerves, he heard a familiar voice calling out from outside. "There you are, lazy guy!" His younger brother Ifeanyi shouted with a smile as he walked past Okechukwu's hut, carrying a big basket full of freshly caught fish. "You'd better get yourself down to the docks. We've got a huge shipment that needs unloading today." Seeing Ifeanyi healthy and full of energy helped to calm Okechukwu's rattled feelings. He took in the sight of his brother, letting the confirmation that the earlier scary things had just been a terrible illusion sink in. Whatever challenges lay ahead, at least Ifeanyi was safe. However, Okechukwu could not entirely shake the feeling of coming danger and dread that the mermaid's words had caused. There was no more avoiding it. His life had now become unavoidably tied to facing these evil terrors. Strengthening his determination, Okechukwu decided he would not shy away from the challenges and protect his village at all costs. Over the next few days, Okechukwu tried his best to go about his normal routine of fishing on the lake with Ifeanyi and the other villagers. But he remained constantly on edge, his nerves frayed as he waited for the first sign of whatever darkness was coming. He didn't have to wait long. One morning, just after sunrise, the village was woken up by bone-chilling screams coming from the area near the docks. When Okechukwu and some others rushed to investigate, they were met with a grisly scene. 3 bodies lying mutilated on the wooden planks, their remains barely recognizable as human. The faces of the victims were frozen in looks of sheer terror, their mouths opened wide as if they had died trying in vain to scream one final time. By the gods, what evil thing could have done such a thing? One of the villagers cried out in horror upon seeing the dismembered corpses. As Okechukwu examined the bodies, his blood ran cold. The frenzied way the killings happened reminded him vividly of his earlier visions of death and sacrifice from the mermaid's illusion. He felt sick as the gruesome reality set in. The coming evil he had been warned about was already happening. Over the next few days, panic and dread gripped the village as more mutilated bodies were found, the death count rising with each waking nightmare. Friends and neighbors lived in constant fear, wondering who would be the next victim of this vicious, unseen killer. The village elders called an emergency meeting, but they were utterly confused and could offer no insights into what evil force could be behind the grisly killings. Theories spread. Was it a group of crazy killers? Some sort of animal gone wild? Or perhaps it was an ancient curse related to the ominous taboo surrounding the old ruins, located in the deep forests outside of the village. As the bodies continued piling up, and the villagers sank deeper into an abyss of paranoia and terror, Okechukwu knew he could no longer just stand by without taking action. Ifeanyi and those he cared about most were in grave danger. Late one night, as he cleaned his fishing nets by the lake under the pale moonlight, Okechukwu noticed a strange, unnatural rippling in the calm waters. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end as an eerie, melodic singing drifted across the otherwise silent shoreline. The singing grew louder until suddenly the water exploded upward and the mermaid emerged, her glowing pale skin and long black hair shimmering with drops of water. "I know you are the one behind these massacres," Okechukwu said, locking eyes with the otherworldly creature defiantly. "Your arrival was a sign of this evil and death." He reached down and grabbed a harpoon, pointing it menacingly at the mermaid. "If you and your kind mean to slaughter us, I will not go down without a fight, sea demon." Rather than seeming threatened, the mermaid simply shook her head, sadly, her expression one of mournful regret rather than malice. "Dear, brave fisherman, I did not create this terror in your village, only warned you of its coming," she said softly. "The slaughter of your kin is just the first move in a much larger struggle between the unseen forces of light and darkness. These killings are the work of demonic creatures far fouler than I." Okechukwu remained defiant, his harpoon still aimed squarely at the mermaid's chest. "Then explain yourself. What evil have you brought here, and why me? Look into my eyes, and you will see the truth. I gave you the second sight to perceive the shadow world precisely so you could face the evil that even now tightens its grip on this land. As the mermaid locked gazes with Okechukwu, he felt a strange sensation wash over him. Suddenly, his vision blurred and shifted, and he found himself perceiving the world in an entirely new way. Ghostly shapes and shadowy figures danced at the edges of his sight, both horrifying and alluring. What sorcery is this? Okechukwu gasped, struggling to make sense of the unearthly visions now flickering before his eyes. I have opened your inner eye to the veil between realms, the mermaid explained. Look there, brave fisherman, and you will see the foul demons responsible for the deaths plaguing your village. Okechukwu's mouth fell open when he saw them. Ugly, thin creatures with long arms and legs and mouths full of sharp teeth in rows. The nasty beasts crawled along the shore, moving in a weird and unsettling way. He could hardly believe such evil things could exist in this world. What are those evil things? Okechukwu stuttered. Rogalit demons, the mermaid said seriously. Mean foot soldiers for the Dark Prophet and his cult of the undying flame. They have been brought here to cause trouble and clear the way for their master to come to this place. Okechukwu felt his blood run cold. The Dark Prophet, what bad thing is he planning? A catastrophic disaster to bring an age of never-ending darkness, misery and suffering for all unlucky souls still walking the earth, the mermaid said in an ominous tone. You are one of the few living people left who can resist his forces of destruction. As Okechukwu understood how serious her words were, he realized the violent murders in the village were just the start of a much bigger, world-ending conflict over the fate of everything. He and his people now found themselves caught up in an unbelievable war between light and dark. The mermaid continued, sounding more urgent. The killings were planned to spread fear and weaken the spiritual barriers protecting this land. Once the prophet breaks through, he will open the gates to the underworld, releasing a flood of death and despair like this world has never seen. Okechukwu felt himself waver between cold dread at the nightmare she described and a burning drive to defend his village and family from the approaching darkness at all costs. If such evil monsters are truly coming for us, I will stand and fight, he declared, finding his courage. No matter the forces against me, I cannot shrink from this unholy threat. The mermaid gave him a sad, mournful look. To wage this battle, you will need power far beyond any living person. With a wave of her hand, a brilliant blue light surrounded Okechukwu's body. He gasped as he felt a tingling electric energy flowing through his veins. I have given you a portion of my ancient magic, she said in a serious voice. Use these abilities to see the approaching darkness and have the strength to push it back. But be warned, the path ahead will test your spirit and demand great sacrifice. No sooner had she spoken than a bone-chilling screech pierced the air. Okechukwu spun around to see a pack of Rogalit demons advancing across the shore, their ugly forms flickering in and out of view. The evil creatures charged at alarming speed, teeth and claws ready to tear flesh. Okechukwu stood his ground, calling upon the new energy pulsing within him. His eyes locked onto the demons, and their movements seemed to slow down. Seizing the moment, Okechukwu grabbed his harpoon and threw it with all his might. The weapon's path seemed to blaze with ghostly light as it sailed through the night air, impaling one of the Rogalits straight through its shadowy chest. The creature let out an awful wail as it burst into ethereal flames, collapsing into a smouldering heap on the sand. Emboldened, Okechukwu drew upon the ancient magic surging within him, unleashing arcing bolts of blue energy that crackled across the demon's path. The remaining Rogolits shrieked in fury and pain as the mystical blasts tore into their evil forms. As quickly as the demonic ambush began, it was over, the foul beasts retreating in ragged disarray. Panting hard, Okechukwu turned back to the mermaid with a defiant look burning in his eyes. That was just a small taste of what's to come, wasn't it? More will keep coming until this dark prophet and his hellish armies are stopped. The mermaid looked at him with a solemn nod. Though he had successfully driven off this first demonic attack, far greater challenges and sacrifices still lay ahead. "Prepare yourself, noble warrior," she declared, "for the real battle is only just beginning." In the days and weeks after, a shadow war erupted across the once peaceful lands around Okechukwu's village. Wielding his new mystical abilities, he fought off escalating attacks by Rogolits and increasingly more powerful demonic creatures, twisted monsters that defied description. Entire stretches of dense jungle became tainted by their dark energies, withering away into ashen wastelands. Village after village fell to the rising marauders, the survivors fleeing in terror while the unlucky met unspeakable grisly ends. Try as he might, Okechukwu could not turn back the relentless tide of darkness and despair. For every demon he banished, 10 more evil creatures would take its place, clawing and rending their way ever closer. The constant strain of battle, loss of comrades and friends, and bearing witness to such profound horror and violation of the natural order exacted a heavy toll on Okechukwu's spirit. More than once, only the thought of Ifeanyi and protecting those he loved most gave him the strength to carry on. Eventually, the horde of demons converged upon Okechukwu's village, their numbers now seemingly endless. Roiling clouds of black smoke and pollution choked the skies, blotting out the sun and moon. As the twisted horrors drew near, the ground itself seemed to rot and fester underfoot. Okechukwu summoned every last bit of power to raise a mystical barrier around the village's outskirts. But even as the blue shield took shape, cracks began spreading rapidly across its surface under the relentless pounding of demonic bombardment. "We cannot withstand much more," the mermaid cried, appearing at Okechukwu's side as he poured all his strength into maintaining the flickering barrier. "If they break through our defenses, unimaginable suffering will rain down upon these people." Looking past the mermaid's frantic form, Okechukwu saw his brother Ifeanyi standing resolutely among the terrified villagers, armed with nothing but a simple fishing spear. Despite the nightmarish onslaught unfolding around them, Ifeanyi met Okechukwu's gaze with a look of solemn determination. At that moment, Okechukwu knew what he had to do. "There is only one way to put an end to this madness," he said, holding back his sadness. "A sacrifice to break the connection between the prophet's forces and our world." The mermaid's eyes went wide with fearful understanding. "No, you cannot mean to. You told me the path ahead would demand a great sacrifice," Okechukwu said quietly. "And I choose to give my own life so that others may go on living, free from the shadow's control." With a solemn nod, the mermaid began an eerie chanting as strange blue marks of light danced across her body. With a final look at Ifeanyi, Okechukwu turned to the mermaid and nodded firmly. Closing his eyes, he focused all his energies inward as the mermaid's chanting grew louder and louder. A brilliant blue glow surrounded Okechukwu, growing brighter and more intense until it became a blinding sphere of mystical power. There was a huge boom as the magic sphere explosively released its built-up energies in a shockwave that went everywhere. The demonic horde was instantly vaporized, the dark prophet's portal violently severed. Though it cost his life, Okechukwu had saved his village and broken the forces of darkness.